Video, we're going to talk about Lonzo Ball's shooting form, and we're going to discuss why he shoots the way he does and how it's relevant to your own shooting form. When watching Lonzo shoot, most people can see that his shot is a bit different than the conventional right-handed jump shot. The conventional shooting form that's taught is for a right-handed shooter to bring the ball up their right side in line with their right eye. And for a left-handed shooter to bring the ball up their left side in line with their left eye. Lonzo, although he's a right-handed shooter, brings the ball up the left side of his body and up to the left side of his head. And Lonzo's not the only shooter who brings the ball closer to the opposite side of his face. There are many other shooters that do this. But it's much more obvious in Lonzo's shot because he brings the ball all the way to the left side of his head and also has a low set point, whereas Kevin Durant, for example, also brings the ball up his left side and above his left eye, but he has a higher set point, and he doesn't bring the ball as far over to the left as Lonzo does, so it's not as obvious. So why does Lonzo bring the ball up to the left side of his face even though he's a right-handed shooter, whereas most right-handed shooters bring the ball up to their right side? Well, the most likely explanation is that he's a left eye dominant shooter. So what is eye dominance, what does it mean to be left eye dominant, and how is that relevant to your own shooting form? Well, we all usually show a preference for one side of our body over the other. So just like we show a preference for one of our hands in that some of us are right-handed and some of us are left-handed, we also show a preference for one of our eyes. Some of us are right eye dominant and some of us are left eye dominant. That simply means that just like someone who is right-handed will prefer to shoot with their right hand, someone who is right eye dominant will prefer to aim or sight with their right eye by bringing an object, in this case the basketball, in front of or in line with their right eye. And someone who is left eye dominant will prefer to aim or sight with their left eye by bringing the ball in line with or in front of their left eye. Now, when a right-handed shooter is also right eye dominant, or when a left-handed shooter is also left eye dominant, this is called ipsilateral dominance, or same-side dominance. And this is the conventional shooting form that's taught. But the conventional shooting form for a right-handed shooter to bring the ball up their right side in line with their right eye is taught with the assumption that all right-handed shooters are also right eye dominant. But this is not always the case, right? Sometimes a right-handed shooter can be left eye dominant. So even though they're right-handed, they'll prefer to bring the ball up in front of or in line with their left eye, their opposite eye. When someone's hand dominance is on the opposite side of their eye dominance, this is called contralateral dominance, or cross dominance. And the same goes for a left-handed shooter. The conventional form for a left-handed shooter is to bring the ball up their left side in line with their left eye. But a left-handed shooter can also be right eye dominant. So in this case, you can see that even though D'Angelo Russell is left-handed, he prefers to bring the ball above his right eye, his opposite eye. Now, I've already showed some examples of basketball players who are cross-dominant, but this phenomenon is not exclusive to basketball. It's common in other accuracy sports as well. Phil Taylor is a 16-time world champion darts player, and he was well known for his cross-dominance. While most right-handed darts players line up the dart with their right eye, Phil Taylor is right-handed, but he would line up the dart in front of his left eye. And even when shooting a gun, many shooting coaches discuss techniques for cross-dominant shooters to increase their accuracy by aiming with their opposite eye. And as you'll see, the two options that we just discussed are actually very similar to the options that basketball players use to address their eye dominance. So when shooting a basketball, there are three common approaches that cross-dominant shooters use to address their eye dominance. The first approach is that some shooters turn their head to get their opposite eye behind the ball. Many times, a shooter will turn or tilt their head while they're shooting to get their dominant eye lined up behind the ball. The second approach is that many shooters bring the ball directly up to their opposite eye. This is the approach that Lonzo took, but he took it to an extreme that you don't see very often. And there are also some shooters who use a combination of the first two options. Joe Johnson, for example, brings the ball directly up to his opposite eye, but also has a slight head tilt. And finally, the third option, and the one that I teach, is to bring the ball up your midline. So for those of you who are cross-dominant shooters, this is the adjustment that I would recommend for you. In my opinion, this is the best compromise for a cross-dominant shooter because it allows you to bring the ball closer to your dominant eye without compromising your mechanics. So Lonzo chose option 2, to bring the ball directly up to his opposite eye, but he brings it extremely far off to the left. So how does this affect Lonzo's shot? Well, in general, a right-handed shooter bringing the ball up as far to the left as Lonzo does can cause a lot of biomechanical issues and can make it very difficult to shoot the ball straight. And bringing the ball up that far to the left isn't something that I would recommend. But Lonzo has made some adjustments to his shot to help him accommodate his unconventional shooting form in order to push the ball straight and become an accurate shooter.